Hi everybody, Don here from Search's Repair Cafe. Today I'll be showing you how to tune up your bicycle for spring. So we found this used bicycle at the thrift warehouse, and it's not in bad shape. It's kind of old, but it's still in good condition. It's not too rusty. And what I suggest people do though is when they buy a used bike, bring it home. You got to do a tune-up because for safety, you don't want parts falling off when you're riding your bicycle. You should also probably do the same thing to your own bicycle every spring before you go out, just to make sure it's all in top-notch shape and safe to go. So I like doing the repairs on top of a table or a bench, whatever you have. And I also like clamping it down because I'm going to be turning the wheels, and the bike will be wiggling around a bit. So I always like using a clamp on the seat, which we got right here. So that's just a furniture clamp I was using to clamp that down, but if you have a seat clamp, or even if you have an assistant, they can sit there and hold it onto it for you as well. It's not perfect, but it's certainly going to help us out considerable that it might not fall off. So one of the first things that you want to look at is tightening up all the fasteners. There's multiple different fasteners on a bicycle. This one, mostly Allen keys. So they're metric Allen keys for this bicycle. This one's 5mm, and most of the bolts actually are 5mm on this bicycle. So you're just going to go around and look for every bolt or nut that you can find and just make sure they're snug, right? Just go around. There's bolts on the handlebars. There's bolts on the seat. There's bolts on the wing. There's little bolts all over the place. So you're just going to go around and tweak them all up and make sure that everything's tight. The next thing I'll look at will be your tire pressure. And just like on your car, it'll have the pressure stamped on the tire itself. So this one right here, it says between 40 and 65 PSI. 40 PSI will give you a little bit of softer ride. 65 PSI, it'll be a little bit harder. So most people probably have one of these small compressors. Just clamp it on your rung, on your valve, fire it up. I won't actually do it, but you get the idea. Now this is a little bit newer. Some of the older bicycles, they just have nuts on the wheels. And you want to go around your adjustable wrench or socket and tighten those nuts. These are a little bit newer bicycle. This is a quick disconnect. And what's good about these is that you can take the wheel off and put the bicycle in the back of your car. So you can drive to where you want to go biking. So there is a quick disconnect on the wheel, on the brake calipers, and on the wheel. The wheels come off, and then you can put them in the trunk. This one also has the exact same system on the back wheel, but I'll just show you the front one. So now, what's important is when you put it back, that you tighten this up properly. And that's your little handle that you just push on that. So there's a nut on the one side, it's just a thumb nut, which tightens this. Now this is too loose right now. So you're gonna tighten that thumb screw up until you want it nice and snug. If you go too far with the thumb screw, then that little bar will be sticking out. So it's a little adjustment. That's good right there. See that? Nice and tight, okay? Next step, put the quick disconnect on your caliper back together. And then we'll boot over and make sure that the tire spins nice and freely and true, and that your brakes pads aren't rubbing. So after you get your wheel on and your brake caliper back assembled, you're going to spin the tire and make sure your brake pads aren't touching, that it moves freely. Now, if your tire at this point is really wobbly or there's some sort of shimmer going on, that's not a repair I'm going to cover in this video. You might have to take the wheel to a bike shop. They'll have to loosen and adjust the spokes to get that wobble out. It should be running nice and true, and like this one. So the next step at this point, because we're at the front here, we're going to look at the brakes. So before you start, you just want to give them a couple little dabs on the caliper, a nice little light oil. I don't like using spray oils because they're going to get all over the place and they're not as good. Nice little light oil. This one's a 3-in-1. Just on all the little mechanisms. Everything that you see. The corner of the brake here as well. So now once you got that oiled up, this is the front brake. You can see how it's activated and it touched. So now if this handle, you want that pressure there. If that handle went all the way down and touched the handlebar, you got to do an adjustment. The problem sometimes, what happens is these, like an older bicycle, these cables will stretch. So if the grip goes all the way down to the handlebars, that means you have to make an adjustment because you won't have enough stopping power. You won't have the brake power. So there's a little thumb wheel over here. This one's in good condition because I'm about a 1/4 inch away from the handlebars. That's about exactly where you want it. You may be able to see it better here. See how it doesn't touch the handlebars? If that bar went all the way down, you got to do a cable adjustment. There's a little thumb wheel right here that you adjust, and that makes the hand part go back up. But I don't have to do it on this one. So that's the front wheel. That's all running nice and true. So now we'll go to the back wheel. We're just going to spin it and make sure it's running true as well. It looks pretty nice. So we're going to get back into doing a couple little drops of oil on all the mechanisms and on the cable. And also up in here, this is your derailleur. You call it a derailleur, much, I guess, like a transmission in your car. Manual transmission. So just try to get all those little parts, little dab of oil. The next thing is the chain. I like using this oil on the chain as well. I'll wipe it off first. Make sure you get any kind of dirt or rust off it if you can. Like that. Again, I don't like using spray oil on chains because it likes to gather dirt. So if you turn the pedals that way, the wheel will turn. If you turn the pedals that way, the wheel won't turn. So I just go and drip. Run the chain around and keep dripping some oil on the chain. Now that you might have to do 2 or 3 times during the summer, especially if you're out riding and maybe you're in the rain or some puddles. If the chain doesn't get oiled, it's going to get really rusty, and then it'll seize. So the next part to look at is the derailleur, and it's basically your transmission. This one has the shifter on the handlebar. Most of the newer bikes have the shifters. Some of the older bikes have the shifters on a little handle. This one's on a crank like that. So what I'm going to do, I want to make sure that it shifts. I'm not sure I'm going to do this so that you can watch it. See how it's going down lower? Okay. Now, when you go all the way, it'll be first gear. Now you can see how this one doesn't want to stay in first gear. So this is out of adjustment. And the same thing happens, as bike's a little bit older, the cable gets stretched, you got to make an adjustment. It's not going into its last sprocket, which is first gear. No matter how much I turn the handle here on the handlebar, it won't stay in first gear. See, it pops into second. So this bike, because the cable is stretched, is fairly old. You can't get into first gear. There's a little adjustment screw right on the back of this. Sometimes there's a couple screws on the derailleur, but this one just has a nice little adjustment wheel on the back of the cable, right where the end of the cable is. So if I loosen that, okay, now we'll try to go back into first gear again. We'll see if we did the adjustment. See that? Now it's in first gear and it's staying in first gear. And that's exactly where you want it to be. Some of the older derailleurs, they had two little screws on them for high and low gear, so you can just do a little adjustment with a screwdriver. But this one's got a really nice little thumb wheel sitting there. So check your air pressure on both tires, make sure they're nice, between 40 and 65 PSI. All your fasteners are tight, and I think you're good to go. You're safe to go for a nice bike ride, hopefully springtime real soon. And that's how simple it can be. For more repair tips and tricks, visit our Facebook page and our YouTube channel where you'll find all of our videos. Thanks for watching.